Kevin Zay, have you seen the latest Reckless Ben video with them projecting Scientology sucks onto Big Blue? What are your thoughts? Have you been in communication with them at all since they did it? Do these types of actions help or hurt the cause? And Eve Ritchie, what do you think about the Reckless Ben Scientology stunt? Okay guys, I knew it was coming. I knew exactly what they were gonna do because they told me, which is why we put the GoFundMe up or they did, and I endorsed it here on my channel because I knew that that was gonna happen, and I was really looking forward to it, and they did a really great job. They really pulled it off with excellent flying colors all around, and I could not approve more of what they did. And I'm going to explain why, because I know that I've said in the past that, you know, protesting and going out and being mean and all that, not a good idea, and it's not. I stand by everything I've said. The reason why I think that what Ben and Mike did was so special and different from what other people have done in the past, and why I think that this kind of a positive approach to dealing with Scientology, even if it's, you know, I mean, positive approach, I know that's a little bit, when they put in Scientology sucks on the side of a building, but Scientology does suck. I mean, that's the truth. You know, from almost any objective metric you care to look at Scientology, it does suck. So the con of the situation is that you're offending a bunch of Scientologists. The pros of the situation are that you are spectacularly punking them, right? And I thought it was really well done. And the reason why I think Mike and Ben were so good about this is because they did not do it from a mean, evil, nasty, spirited place. They came at this in an impressively good, almost even respectful in a way, kind of way. And I say this because if you watch the last video, you can see how they interact with the police, with other Scientologists who come and confront them about what they're doing. And, you know, good on the Scientologists, I guess. Over the years, I guess they've learned to not walk up to people and ask them how many babies they've destroyed or killed that week, like Jenna Elfman did years ago. And they didn't come and just like get in their face about it. And that was an interesting response from Scientology. They are really trying to temper their harsh public imagery that they have created themselves in the past with all of the insults and antagonism and you know, coming out with fists flying when critics would come around protesting Scientology. So those days seem to be they're chilling now, man. They'll just stand there with the cameras and film you, and they were trying to engage, and they were engaging, and Mike and Ben and the other guys kind of engaged back in a pretty good way. You could see that Mike and Ben's actions also brought some of the neighbors around the Scientology complex out, and they were fully supportive of what Mike and Ben were doing. They were like, yeah, this is great. I've had family disconnected. I know people that Scientology is disconnected forcefully, and, you know, and they made themselves known, and they weren't shy about saying any of this to the Scientologists that were coming around too, and good on them for doing it, right? But again, it was all kept pretty chill for the most part, and I really liked that, you know, and they also obviously had a ton of fun doing it, because they didn't just project it on Big Blue. They went around to all the orgs they could find around LA, and they really got the maximum amount of use out of that equipment. I liked that. And they got shots of all of it, of course. I saw the pictures before the video was even released, when they were releasing it on social media. And I just thought it was awesome. So I think that's the kind of thing that I would love to see more of in the future. You know, it's not illegal. It's not shaming people directly, like to their face, and creating this like antagonistic sort of thing. Obviously, Scientologists are going to be offended. But, you know, at this point, with the few that are kind of left in there, I mean, what kind of headspace are the people who are still in Scientology at this point? Where do they have to be? Because it is impossible at this point in time, and here's a more general, broader point about all this, at least as far as I think I see it. I could be totally wrong about this, but here's how I see it. I believe that at this point, there are only two kinds of people who are in Scientology, who still are in there. it is, I believe it is impossible for any existing Scientologist to not be aware of at least some part of the criticism that we have been blasting out to the world for the last 10, 15 years or so, right? Like, there's a lot of it out there, and Scientology's name truly is mud in the world at large. So Scientologists who try to reach out and promulgate the religion are running right into this. And so it is just impossible that Scientologists don't know what's going on in the world at large now. Sea Org members are the exception. I'm not, Sea Org members, the information control is still very, very intense, and I don't know that Sea Org members necessarily know about what's going on out here, but I think the regular public Scientologists do, and I think probably a lot of the staff do too, which is why you see their numbers shrinking. So, two kinds of people left. Who are they? One, fanatics. Full-on fanatics. People who are not going to listen to a single thing that anyone has to say about Scientology because they are absolutely convinced in a very, very black and white way of thinking that Scientology is the only answer and everybody else has it dead wrong. And they're the kind of person who's willing to stand, and face the millions and say, I'm right and you're all wrong, and not have a shred of doubt in their mind about it. That's a pretty sad place to be, no matter what cause you're fighting for or ascribing to. So I think that forms the bulk of who's left in Scientology, are people who are really in a fanatical state of mind, or the people who are their immediate friends or family who don't want to, for some reason, disconnect from those Scientologists, those fanatics. It's their father, it's their mother, it's their son, it's their daughter, it's whatever. It's their business partner. It's somebody who they don't want to rock that boat. They don't want to disturb that because their own life depends too much on this other person and the relationship that they have with them. So they can't endanger that, so they won't. So they just toe the line and try to do the best they can and show up at events, or take some phone calls or pay for some services or whatever it is they're doing to try to pass the loyalty test that Scientology is constantly throwing their way. And I've heard from people who are still in that this is becoming more frequent, that it's becoming less and less acceptable in that world to try to fly under the radar or be the person who's just, yeah, you're cool. Would not even agree to disagree. Just, yeah, it's good. I like it. I'm just not really down for doing it right now, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, they're not really down with that passive sort of membership a lot now. They're pushing harder and harder on this as they circle those wagons and try to bring everybody in and fanaticize them, I guess you could say. So that's how I see Scientology right now. That's kind of what makes sense to me as to who would be left in there and why they'd be there. And also that also speaks, of course, to why it would be such a small number, because statistically speaking, 10, 20, 30,000 people fanatically believing in something, or let's say that 2/3 of Scientologists, I'm just pulling these numbers out of wherever, but let's say 2/3 of existing Scientologists are these fanatics, and then 1/3 of them are the people who are connected to the fanatics for some reason. And like I said, I'm just kind of making these numbers up, but let's say 2 out of 3 of them are that way. Statistically speaking, that's not, you can find all kinds of people believing in all kinds of crazy, nonsensical things in numbers like that from a certain point of view might think are a lot of people, but from the global perspective, it's nothing. It's statistically an irrelevant number almost. So, that's kind of how I look at it now, is Scientology is literally statistically irrelevant in the big picture of the world. But it's a great thing to use. For me now, I look at it more as a great example of just how off the rails people can go, and the consequences. It's a good object lesson, I guess I'm saying, in fanaticism, in religious indoctrination, in propaganda, in mind control, in hypnosis. I mean, there's a lot of levels to it. And I think that's why it's still worthy of being talked about and discussed, and why I am continuing to do this. So anyway, that's there's a reckless bend to a broader statement on the matter, and there you go.